After decades of dominance, May 6, 1937 would signal the end of the airship era. The fireball that consumed the largest commercial airship in the world would imprint itself into people's memories. This video will examine what happened to the Hindenburg, what caused the disaster, and its effects on the airship industry. The Hindenburg was the Concorde of its day, able to cross the Atlantic in a mere 3 days, twice as fast as going by sea. It was the largest commercial airship in the world at around 245 meters long and 41 meters in diameter. That's 3 times larger than a modern-day Boeing 747. The gas cells that provided the Hindenburg's lift were designed to be filled with helium, which was known to be safer than hydrogen due to its lack of flammability. At the time, however, the Germans couldn't afford helium. In addition to being expensive, helium produces less lift than hydrogen, meaning the airship would have had a smaller payload and therefore be less profitable. In the end, the Nazis opted for the cheaper and more commercially viable hydrogen. This was a choice that set the Hindenburg on the course of disaster. On its fateful last voyage, the Hindenburg took off from Frankfurt, Germany on May 3, 1937. Its journey across the Atlantic was fairly uneventful, although a strong headwind put their arrival time back 12 hours. By May 6th, the Hindenburg was approaching its destination. Upon hearing of bad weather up ahead at New Jersey, a delayed landing was requested by Captain Max Pruss. Captain Pruss then charted a course over Manhattan Island to pass the time, creating a public spectacle as the world's largest airship flew over the city. By around 6:20 p.m, the bad weather had passed, and the Hindenburg made its way towards Lakehurst Naval Base, where it would land. It was the first transatlantic passenger flight of the year by Zeppelin to the United States. Because of this, it had attracted a large number of journalists to the landing. As the Hindenburg made its final approach, the weather began deteriorating. The ship's officers made a sharp S-shaped maneuver at full speed to better position the airship for the wind gusts. Now that the airship was in a more stable position to deal with the worsening weather, the officers ordered the landing ropes to be dropped. Handlers on the ground used these ropes to guide and pull the airship down. At the time of the ropes dropping, they were dry. As the ground crew grabbed the mooring lines, light rain was reportedly in the air, slowly dampening these ropes. This is an important detail to remember. Shortly after the officers dropped the landing ropes, came the first reports of a wave-like fluttering towards the ship's stern. The only plausible explanation for this fluttering was hydrogen gas escaping the airship's protected gas cells. To further corroborate the gas leak, the Hindenburg became stern heavy. In footage from the disaster, you can see over 1 ton of water ballast being dropped. This was an attempt by Captain Pruss to bring the ship in trim, but it failed. As more gas leaked, the lift was reduced. At 7:25 p.m, witnesses report seeing a dull blue flame just moments before the flames appeared over the ship's tail. The entire stern of the Hindenburg was covered in fire within seconds. The ship's stern dropped quickly as the fire spread rapidly through the gas cells. The shock of the stern smashing the ground sent a burst of flames out of the ship's bow. This burst of flame is responsible for the deaths of 9 crew members. Moments later, the rest of the Hindenburg crashed to the ground, its skeleton buckling and collapsing. Most shockingly, it took the fire just 34 seconds to turn the airship into a heap of scrap metal. For the 97 people aboard the airship, these 34 seconds were terrible. Survival depended mostly on where people were when the disaster occurred. Most people on the ship's peripheries had good access to windows. As the stern quickly dropped, jumping from the windows and scrambling away from the fire was the best option for survival. Unfortunately, if you were in your cabin, your chances of survival were extremely slim. Looking at the pictures and footage, you'd think that nobody would be able to survive this horror. Tragically, 36 people died, 22 crew members, 13 passengers, and 1 worker on the ground. A staggering 62 people managed to jump to safety, escaping the flames. It's unlikely that we'll ever find the true cause of the Hindenburg's disastrous final minutes, but there is a leading theory. As mentioned, the weather on the day of the disaster was poor. In fact, witnesses reported seeing lightning in the sky as the Hindenburg was landing. There was so much electricity in the air that experts believe the Hindenburg became statically charged. Normally, this static electricity wouldn't be a problem for an airship. The Hindenburg had even been struck by lightning in the past without causing a fire. The gas cells did their job. However, the Hindenburg was the biggest commercial airship in the world, and it was not designed to make sharp, fast turns. So when they performed the sharp S-shaped maneuver at full speed to better position the ship for wind gusts, it's believed that an internal wire snapped and punctured a gas cell towards the ship's stern, causing the fluttering that was witnessed by spectators. The crew then dropped the mooring lines, which were dry and less conductive. However, as the rain dampened these ropes, they became more conductive until a discharge occurred, sparking the highly flammable gas that had been leaking. This is what experts believe is the most likely situation. There have also been other theories, such as a sabotage attempt or engine failure causing the disaster, but still, the evidence we have best aligns with the static discharge theory. Because the event was so highly publicised, it severely damaged the public perception of airships. After seeing the horrors, people became afraid of hydrogen airships. Additionally, heavier-than-air aircraft were becoming far cheaper alternatives. American and German companies had plans to build more airships, but these were mostly cancelled. Although airships never truly disappeared, the Hindenburg disaster ended the true airship age.